Now let's begin. The industrial fluorescents hummed their usual monotone symphony as Jesse Harris rolled up the blueprints on his desk. The construction site office was empty except for him, had been for the past 3 hours. He'd volunteered for the overnight inspection shift because the pay was double and Emma's birthday was coming up. She'd been asking for art supplies, the expensive kind that real artists used, she'd said with those serious brown eyes that reminded him so much of his own. He glanced at his phone. 1:47 a.m. The inspection had gone faster than expected. No structural issues, no code violations. He could head home 5 hours early, maybe catch a few hours of sleep before Emma woke up. She always crept into their bedroom at 6:30 on Saturday mornings, whispering "Daddy," until he pretended to wake up with exaggerated surprise. Jesse locked the office and walked to his truck, his breath visible in the frozen air. Minnesota winters were brutal, but he'd grown up with them. The cold was honest. It didn't pretend to be anything other than what it was. The drive home took 20 minutes through empty streets. His house in the suburbs sat dark except for the porch light Becky always left on. He'd been married to Becky Malone, now Becky Harris, for 9 years. They'd met at a community college fundraiser where she'd been volunteering, her auburn hair catching the light as she laughed at something her friend said. She'd been kind then, or maybe he'd just wanted to see kindness. Jesse pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. Something felt off. Emma's bedroom window was dark, but that wasn't unusual. What nagged at him was the subtle wrongness in the air, the way you know something's out of place before you can name it. He entered the house quietly, not wanting to wake anyone. The living room was empty, lit only by the muted glow of a table lamp Becky left on when she was out. He climbed the stairs and eased open Emma's door. The bed was empty. Jesse's pulse quickened. He checked the bathroom, then their bedroom. Becky was there, sprawled across their bed, still fully clothed, her phone clutched in one hand. He shook her shoulder. "Becky, where's Emma?" She stirred, squinting at him with unfocused eyes. "Jesse, what are you doing home?" Her words were slightly slurred. Had she been drinking? "Where's Emma?" "She's at Dad's. Larry took her over there around 8. Becky yawned and rolled over. Said she needed to learn some discipline. "Go back to sleep." Ice flooded Jesse's veins. Stuart Malone lived 15 minutes away in a house that was too big for one person and filled with antique furniture that children weren't allowed to touch. Emma hated going there. "Why is she there at 2 in the morning?" "I don't know, Jesse. Ask Larry. He said it was important." Becky's eyes were already closing again. Jesse stood there for 3 seconds, running calculations. Something was wrong. Emma was 7 years old. She should be in her bed, not at her grandfather's house in the middle of the night. He was back in his truck before Becky could ask another question. The streets were empty as Jesse drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Stuart's house loomed at the end of a cul-de-sac, a colonial-style monument to old money and older grudges. Jesse had never liked his father-in-law, and the feeling was mutual. Stuart had made it clear from the beginning that his daughter had married beneath her station. Jesse, the construction manager with calloused hands and a state school education, wasn't good enough for a Malone. As he turned onto the street, his headlights swept across something that made his heart stop. Emma. She was standing on the front lawn, a small figure in her pink pajamas, holding a piece of cardboard above her head. Her feet were bare on the snow-covered grass. Jesse slammed the truck into park and ran. He was across the lawn in seconds, scooping Emma into his arms. She was shaking violently, her skin ice-cold, her lips a terrifying shade of blue. He ripped off his jacket and wrapped it around her, pulling her against his chest. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Don't go inside." Jesse looked at the cardboard sign that had fallen to the ground. Block letters written in black marker. "I am a liar." "Baby, what happened? Why are you out here?" He was already moving toward the house. Emma clutched against him. "Uncle Larry said liars don't deserve warmth," Emma said, her teeth chattering. "He said I have to hold the sign until I tell the truth. But Daddy, I did tell the truth, I promise." "How long have you been out here?" "I don't know. It was after Grandpa's bedtime. Uncle Larry checked on me twice. He said if I went inside, you'd never see me again." Rage, white-hot and pure, flooded through Jesse's body. He carried Emma to the truck, turned on the engine and the heat, and wrapped her in every blanket he kept in the back seat. "Stay here, baby girl. Lock the doors. I'll be right back." "Daddy, please don't." "Lock the doors, Emma." He waited until he heard the locks click, then turned toward the house. Through the front window, he could see lights on in the living room. Figures moving. The sound of laughter. Jesse tried the door. Unlocked. He stepped inside. The house smelled like cigars and bourbon. Jesse moved through the foyer, past family photos that had never included him, toward the sound of voices. His boots left wet prints on the hardwood. Should have seen her face when I told her she'd freeze if she didn't confess. Larry's voice. Larry Malone, Becky's older brother, a corporate lawyer who wore suits that cost more than Jesse's truck payment. Jesse had tolerated him for Becky's sake, suffered through family dinners where Larry made jokes about blue-collar work and manual labor. Jesse reached the living room doorway and stopped. The scene before him crystallized into perfect, damning clarity. His wife, Becky, was on the couch, her head on the shoulder of Mark Warren. Mark, who'd been Jesse's business partner 5 years ago before Jesse discovered he was skimming from their clients. Mark, who disappeared after Jesse threatened to involve the police. Mark, whose hand was now on Becky's thigh. Larry sat in Stuart's leather armchair, a tumbler of bourbon in his hand, his tie loosened. Stuart himself stood by the fireplace, looking older than his 62 years, but his eyes were sharp and unapologetic. "Kid's got a mouth on her," Mark was saying. "Tried to tell Jesse she saw us together last week. Smart move calling her a liar, Becky. She's 7, Becky said, her words slurred. She doesn't know what she saw. She knew enough, Larry said. That's why I made sure she understands there are consequences for lying. He laughed. Or in this case, for telling the truth. Jesse stood in the doorway, watching his wife lean into another man, watching her brother laugh about torturing a 7-year-old child, watching her father do nothing. The betrayal was complete. Stuart saw him first. The old man's face went pale. Jesse. Everyone turned. Becky scrambled up from the couch, her face flushed. Jesse, what are you? You're supposed to be at work. Mark Warren stood slowly, a smirk on his face. Well, the working man comes home early. Larry set down his glass, his expression shifting from surprise to calculation. This isn't what it looks like, Jesse. Jesse looked at each of them in turn. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet. My daughter was standing outside in 19-degree weather, barefoot, for hours, because she tried to tell me the truth about you. He looked at Becky. About all of you. Jesse, I can explain. Becky started. How long? Silence. How long? Mark answered, that smirk still in place. About 6 months. And before you get all high and mighty, she came to me. Said she made a mistake marrying a guy who works with his hands and smells like sawdust. Larry stood up. Now listen, Jesse. We can discuss this like adults. Jesse moved before his conscious mind registered the decision. He crossed the room in 3 strides, and his fist connected with Larry's jaw, sending the lawyer sprawling backward over the chair. Larry hit the floor hard, blood streaming from his nose. You put my daughter in the snow. Jesse's voice was a roar now. A 7-year-old child. Mark moved toward him, but Jesse was faster. Years of construction work had made him strong, and anger made him unstoppable. He grabbed Mark by his expensive shirt and slammed him against the wall. And you piece of garbage, you stole from me, disappeared, and came back to steal my wife? Stuart's voice cut through the chaos. That's enough. Jesse, I'm calling the police. Do it, Jesse snarled. Call them. Let's have them see what you people did to Emma. Let's have them hear about how you let your son torture your granddaughter to cover up your daughter's affair. Becky was crying now, mascara running down her face. Jesse, please, we can work this out. Jesse released Mark, who slumped against the wall. He looked at Becky, and something in his chest broke cleanly, like a bone snapping. Work it out? You let them punish Emma. You knew she was telling the truth, and you called her a liar. You let your brother put our daughter outside in the freezing cold. I didn't know he'd. I thought he was just going to talk to her. You didn't know because you didn't care. Jesse's voice was cold now, the rage crystallizing into something harder, more dangerous. None of you cared. He turned and walked toward the door. Where are you going? Stuart demanded. Jesse didn't look back. To take care of my daughter. The only person in this family worth a damn. He walked out of the house, leaving them in their expensive living room with their expensive lies. Emma was still in the truck, wrapped in blankets, her eyes wide with fear. Jesse climbed in and pulled her close, feeling her small body shake against his. Are you okay, Daddy? I'm okay, baby girl. He started the truck. But we're not going home tonight. We're going to the hospital to make sure you're okay. Then we're going somewhere safe. What about mommy? Jesse felt Emma's question like a knife between his ribs. He kissed the top of her head. Let me worry about that, okay? Right now, you need to get warm. As he drove away from the Malone house, Jesse's mind was already working, cataloging evidence, planning next steps. They'd hurt his daughter. They'd betrayed him in the worst possible way. And they thought they'd get away with it because they had money and lawyers and the Malone family name. They were wrong. Jesse Harris might work with his hands, might have calluses and sawdust under his fingernails, but he'd built a construction business from nothing. He knew how to plan, how to execute, and how to make sure a foundation was solid before building something that would last. This time, he was going to build something different. He was going to build their destruction, piece by careful piece, until everything they valued crumbled to dust. The emergency room doctor confirmed what Jesse already knew. Emma would be fine physically. Mild hypothermia, but her core temperature was rising steadily. They wanted to keep her for observation, which suited Jesse perfectly. It gave him time to think, to plan, and to make phone calls. The first call was to his lawyer, Austin Riley, a scrappy young attorney who'd helped Jesse with his business contracts and had become a friend. Austin answered on the third ring, his voice groggy. Jesse? It's 4 a.m. I need you to meet me at County General. Now. And bring a recorder. Austin's voice sharpened. What happened? I'm filing for emergency custody and divorce. I have a witness who's 7 years old and has mild hypothermia from being left outside as punishment for telling the truth. I need everything documented. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The second call was to Glenn Weiss, a private investigator Jesse had worked with on a construction fraud case 2 years ago. Glenn was former FBI, methodical and ruthless when it came to finding the truth. Glenn, it's Jesse Harris. I need you on a job. Full surveillance, background checks, financial records, everything you can find on 4 people. He rattled off names. Becky Harris, Mark Warren, Larry Malone, Stuart Malone. I need evidence of an affair, financial irregularities, anything that can be used in court or elsewhere. Money's no object. How soon? Yesterday. Give me a week. I'll find what you need. The third call was the hardest. Jesse dialed his older brother, Dominic Glass. Technically half-brother, they shared a father who'd left when Jesse was 3, who lived in Chicago and ran a construction company twice the size of Jesse's. They weren't close, but blood mattered when it counted. Dom? It's Jesse. Jesse? What's wrong? Jesse explained in clipped sentences. Dominic listened without interrupting. Then his voice came through the line, hard as steel. You need money? Legal help? What? I need Emma somewhere safe while I handle this. Becky has family money and lawyers. I need to move fast, and I need to know Emma's protected. Send her to me. Melissa's been wanting to meet her niece anyway. We'll keep her safe, get her enrolled in school here if it comes to that. And Jesse? Whatever you need to bury these people, you call me. By the time Austin arrived, Jesse had made 2 more calls and had a plan forming. It wasn't complete yet, but the foundation was there. Austin looked at Emma sleeping in the hospital bed, at the medical chart documenting her condition, and his jaw tightened. They really put her outside? For hours. Her uncle threatened her, said if she came inside, she'd never see me again. Austin's pen moved across his notepad in swift, angry strokes. We're getting a restraining order today. Emergency custody hearing by Monday. And Jesse? We're going to destroy them. Not we. Jesse said quietly, looking at his daughter. Me. You just make sure it's all legal enough that I keep Emma. Austin studied him for a moment. What are you planning? Nothing that concerns you. As my lawyer, you're better off not knowing. Jesse. Austin. They put my 7-year-old daughter in the snow, barefoot, in the middle of the night. They tortured a child to cover up an affair. Do you really want to know what I'm planning to do about it? Austin closed his notepad. No. I suppose I don't. But whatever it is, make sure you can't be traced back to it. That's the plan. Over the next 3 days, Jesse moved with the precision he used on his construction projects. Emma went to Chicago with Dominic and his wife Melissa, excited about a vacation to meet her aunt and uncle and her cousins. Jesse told her it was temporary, just until some grown-up stuff got sorted out. She'd hugged him tight at the airport and whispered, I love you, Daddy. I'm sorry I told. Never apologize for telling the truth, Jesse had said, holding her close. Never. You did the right thing, and I'm proud of you. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Monday. Austin filed the paperwork documenting Emma's hypothermia, the hospital records, and Jesse's sworn statement about finding her outside. He also filed for divorce and a restraining order against Becky, Larry, and Stuart. Becky's response came through her lawyer on Sunday night. A countersuit claiming Jesse had assaulted Larry and Mark, demanding full custody of Emma, and alleging that Jesse was an unfit father who worked excessive hours and neglected his child. Jesse read the documents in his empty house and smiled. They thought they could outmaneuver him with lawyers and money. They didn't understand that he wasn't planning to fight them in court, at least, not only in court. Court was just the visible battle. The real war would happen in the shadows, where Jesse had spent the last 3 days laying groundwork. Glenn Weiss called on Sunday evening. I've got preliminary findings. You want the bad news or the worst news? All of it. Mark Warren's been living in an apartment in downtown Minneapolis for the past 3 months. Lease is under an LLC, but I traced it back to Stuart Malone. He's been funding it. Warren's got no visible income, no job, but he's driving a new BMW and spending money like he's got plenty. I'm betting Stuart's been bankrolling him. Keep going. Larry Malone's got a gambling problem. Not public knowledge, but he's into some serious offshore betting sites for about 40 grand. He's been making payments, but he's stretched thin. His law firm doesn't know yet, but they will soon. I've got a source in their accounting department. And Becky, your wife's been transferring money to Mark's LLC account. Small amounts, regular intervals. Started about 6 months ago, like Warren said. She's been using joint account funds. Jesse absorbed this. His wife had been stealing from their shared finances to support her affair partner. What about Stuart? That's where it gets interesting. Stuart Malone's got money problems. Big ones. He took out a second mortgage on his house 8 months ago. His investments took a hit, and he's been selling assets. That colonial mansion he lives in, it's mortgaged to the ceiling. The Malone family money? Most of it's gone. Jesse sat back in his chair. The picture was becoming clearer. He's been funding Mark to keep Becky happy. But why? Why would Stuart bankroll his daughter's affair? I'm working on that. Give me a few more days. But Jesse, whatever you're planning, these people are desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. I'm counting on it. After hanging up with Glenn, Jesse sat in the darkening living room of the house he'd bought for his family, thinking. Becky had married him 9 years ago when the Malone money was still solid. She'd seemed content enough, even happy at times. What had changed? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Rosedale Coffee tomorrow, 10 a.m. Come alone. Jay? Jesse stared at the message. Jay. The only Jay he could think of was Jenny Harvey, Becky's younger sister. He texted back. How did you get my number? Your lawyer gave it to Austin's secretary. I told her I was family. Please, Jesse. There are things you need to know about what's been happening. Things Emma doesn't know. Things nobody knows. Jesse considered. Jenny had always been different from the rest of the Malones. Quieter, less impressed with money and status. She worked as a nurse and lived in a modest apartment, refusing Stuart's offers to set her up properly. At family gatherings, she was usually the only one who talked to Jesse like he was a person rather than a servant. I'll be there. Tomorrow was Monday. The custody hearing was at 2 in the afternoon. He'd have time to meet with Jenny, assess whether she was another trap or potentially an ally, and then head to court. Jesse looked around the empty house. Becky hadn't tried to come home. She was staying with Stuart, according to Austin. Probably planning strategy with her lawyers, spinning the narrative to make Jesse the villain. They could try. But Jesse had spent 9 years building things, learning to see structural weaknesses, understanding how to bring something down safely and completely. This would be no different. He just needed to find the right pressure points. His phone rang. Dominic. How's Emma? Jesse asked immediately. She's great. Melissa took her shopping today, got her some winter clothes. She's adjusting well. Misses you, though. When are you telling her about the divorce? When I have custody secured. I don't want her worrying. Jesse, I know that look in your voice. Whatever you're planning. I'm not planning anything illegal. I didn't say illegal. I said whatever you're planning. These people hurt your kid. I get it. But don't throw your life away on revenge. I'm not throwing anything away, Jesse said quietly. I'm taking back what's mine. My daughter. My dignity. My life. Dominic was silent for a moment. Okay. But remember, Emma needs her father. Don't do anything that might take you away from her. After they hung up, Jesse sat in the darkness, thinking about revenge and justice and the thin line between them. He wasn't interested in revenge for its own sake. He was interested in making sure the people who hurt Emma faced consequences, real consequences, not just a slap on the wrist from family court. And if those consequences destroyed them in the process, well, that was just proper construction. You couldn't build something new until you tore down what was broken beyond repair. Rosedale Coffee was a small shop in a strip mall, the kind of place that served actual coffee instead of desserts disguised as beverages. Jesse arrived 10 minutes early and took a table in the back where he could see the entrance. Jenny Harvey arrived exactly at 10, looking nervous. She was 31, 3 years younger than Becky, with darker hair and their mother's Italian features rather than Stuart's Irish ones. She wore scrubs under her coat, probably coming from or going to a shift at the hospital. She slid into the seat across from him. Thank you for coming. You said there are things I need to know. Jenny looked at her hands. I should have told you before. I wanted to, but I was afraid. Afraid of Dad, afraid of Larry, afraid of being cut off from the family. But after what happened to Emma, she looked up, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm so sorry, Jesse. I should have protected her. What do you know, Jenny? Becky and Mark started the affair about 8 months ago. I found out by accident, saw them together at a restaurant when Becky told you she was at a work conference. I confronted her, and she told me everything. She said she made a mistake marrying you, that she wanted more from life than being a construction manager's wife. Jesse kept his face neutral. Go on. Dad knew about it. He's been encouraging it, actually. Mark came back into the picture last year. He contacted Becky, said he'd made money and wanted to make amends. Dad saw an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? Jenny took a breath. Dad's broke, Jesse. Completely broke. He's been living on credit and borrowed money for the past 2 years. Mom's medical bills before she died wiped out most of their savings, and Dad made some bad investments trying to recover. He's facing foreclosure on the house. And Mark told Dad he made a fortune in cryptocurrency. He offered to help Dad with his financial problems if Dad would facilitate a reconciliation with Becky. Dad agreed. He's been pushing Becky to divorce you and marry Mark, promising that Mark's money would solve all their problems. Jesse processed this. Is Mark actually wealthy? Jenny shook her head. I don't think so. I think he's conning them. But Dad's desperate enough to believe it, and Becky's convinced herself that life would be better with someone who can give her the lifestyle she thinks she deserves. And Larry's in on it because Dad promised to pay off his gambling debts once Becky and Mark get married. They've been planning this for months, Jesse. The affair, the divorce, everything. Emma finding out about Becky and Mark wasn't part of the plan. When she told you what she saw, they panicked. So they called her a liar and tortured her to make sure I wouldn't believe her. Jenny nodded, tears streaming down her face now. I didn't know about that part. I swear, I didn't know Larry would do that. When I heard about Emma in the hospital, I wanted to kill him myself. Jesse studied Jenny's face, looking for deception. He saw only guilt and genuine distress. Why are you telling me this now? Because Emma deserves better. Because you deserve to know the truth. And because... She hesitated. Because I can help you. I have access to Dad's house. I know where he keeps his financial records, his computer passwords, everything. If you need evidence for the custody case or the divorce, I can get it for you. Why would you betray your family like that? Jenny's laugh was bitter. Betray them? Jesse, they're not my family anymore. They're strangers who care more about money and status than about a 7-year-old girl's safety. Real family doesn't do what they did. Jesse made a decision. I'm meeting with my lawyer after this. Can you come with me? If you're serious about helping, I need you to make an official statement. I'll do it. And Jesse, whatever you're planning to do to them, I won't get in your way. They deserve whatever's coming. As they left the coffee shop together, Jesse felt the plan crystallizing further. He had allies now. Austin, Glenn, Dominic, and Jenny. He had information. He had motivation. What he needed next was the perfect trap. The emergency custody hearing went better than Jesse expected. Austin presented the medical evidence, photographs of Emma standing outside in the snow, and hospital documentation of her hypothermia. Jenny testified about what she'd witnessed, confirming that Larry had admitted to putting Emma outside as punishment and that Stuart had been present and allowed it. Becky's lawyer tried to paint Jesse as violent, bringing up his assault on Larry. But Austin countered with self-defense. What father wouldn't react violently to seeing his daughter abused? The judge, a stern woman named Margaret Ortiz, reviewed the evidence with a deepening frown. She granted Jesse temporary full custody, pending a complete investigation by Child Services. Becky was granted supervised visitation only, with the supervision to be provided by a court-appointed monitor, not family members. Outside the courtroom, Becky tried to approach Jesse, but her lawyer held her back. Jesse saw the anger in her eyes, the disbelief that she was losing. She'd expected her family money and connections to prevail. She was learning that when a child's safety was involved, money didn't always win. That night, Jesse sat in his home office, looking at the information Glenn had compiled. Financial records, timeline of the affair, evidence of Stewart's bankruptcy, documentation of Larry's gambling debts. It was comprehensive, damning, and exactly what he needed. But it wasn't enough. Jesse didn't just want to win the custody case. He wanted to ensure that these people could never hurt Emma again, never use their money or influence to worm their way back into their lives. He picked up his phone and called Glenn. I need you to dig deeper into Mark Warren. Every scam he's run, every person he's conned, everything. If he's planning to defraud Stewart and Becky, I want proof. And I want to know when it's going to happen. You want to let him scam them? I want to help him scam them. Then I want to make sure everyone knows exactly what happened. Glenn was quiet for a moment. That's cold, Jesse. They put my daughter in the snow. Cold is what they earned. The next phase of Jesse's plan began to take shape. He'd let Mark and Stewart's scheme play out, maybe even accelerate it. He'd ensure that when it collapsed, it took all of them down, financially, socially, legally. And he'd make sure that Emma was safely far away when the explosion happened. But first, he needed to know exactly what Mark was planning. And for that, he needed someone on the inside. He picked up his phone and called Jenny. How good are you at playing a role? What do you need? I need you to convince your father that you're on his side. That you testified against him in court because you were scared, but you realize now that he was just trying to help Becky. Can you do that? You want me to spy on them? I want you to find out exactly what Mark is planning. Stewart thinks Mark is wealthy, but we both know he's probably running a con. I need to know what kind of con, when it's happening, and how much money is involved. Can you do that? Jenny was silent for a long moment. Yes, I can do that. But Jesse, when this is over, I don't want anything to do with them ever again. When this is over, you won't have to. Jesse hung up and looked at the board he'd created on his office wall. Photos, timeline, connections. It looked like something from a crime thriller, but it was just good planning. Construction project management applied to destruction instead of building. He'd spent his career learning how to build things that lasted. Now he was going to build a trap so perfect that when it closed, the Malones and Mark Warren wouldn't just lose. They'd be destroyed so completely that they could never recover. And the best part? They were going to build it themselves, piece by piece, while thinking they were building their own salvation. Jesse Harris might work with his hands, but his mind was sharp enough to see 3 moves ahead. And right now, he could see all the way to checkmate. 2 weeks passed. Emma remained in Chicago with Dominic, thriving in her new school and making friends. Jesse called her every night, and every time he heard her laugh, his resolve hardened. She deserved better than what the Malones had given her. She deserved safety, stability, and a father who would protect her no matter what it cost. Jenny played her role perfectly. She apologized to Stewart, claiming she'd panicked at the custody hearing. Stewart, desperate for family unity and someone to help manage his increasingly complicated financial situation, accepted her back. Within days, she was attending family meetings where Mark presented his investment opportunities. He's running a classic Ponzi scheme, Jenny reported during one of her clandestine meetings with Jesse at a diner outside the city. He's got Dad convinced that if he invests what's left of his money plus takes out a few more loans, Mark can triple it in 6 months through some cryptocurrency venture. Dad's buying it because he's desperate. How much is Stewart planning to invest? Everything. He's already liquidated his stock portfolio and taken out a 3rd mortgage. Mark's talking about needing $500,000 total to maximize returns. Dad's scrambling to get it together. Jesse felt something dark and satisfied settle in his chest. And Becky's cashing out her trust fund. She'll have it all by the end of the month. She's convinced that once she's divorced from you and married to Mark, they'll be wealthy again. She talks about taking Emma back, moving to a big house, giving her the life she deserves. Jesse's hands tightened on his coffee cup. She thinks she's getting Emma back. She really does. Her lawyer told her the CPS investigation won't find anything. Larry's claiming you attacked him first, and he was just defending himself. Becky thinks the supervised visitation is temporary. What does Mark say about all this? Jenny leaned forward. This is the interesting part. I hacked into Mark's email. Don't ask me how. I dated an IT guy in college. Mark's been communicating with someone named Raymond Moss. They're planning to take the money and disappear as soon as everyone's invested. There are airline tickets purchased for the Cayman Islands, bank account information, everything. Mark's planning to vanish the same day Becky's divorce from you is finalized. Jesse sat back, mind racing. This was better than he'd hoped. Mark was planning to con them all, which meant Jesse didn't have to destroy them. He just had to make sure the con happened publicly and that everyone saw exactly how foolish the Malones had been. But he needed timing. He needed Emma's custody finalized first. He needed his divorce finalized. And he needed Mark's con to happen in a way that maximized the damage and ensured that criminal charges followed. When's Mark planning to disappear? 3 weeks from now? Right after Becky's trust fund clears. 3 weeks. Jesse could work with that. Can you get copies of all of Mark's communications? The emails, the bank information, the tickets? Already done. Jenny slid a USB drive across the table. Everything's on here. Including proof that Dad knew Mark was your former partner, knew about the skimming, and brought him back specifically to break up your marriage. Jesse took the drive, feeling its weight like a weapon. You're sure you want to do this? Once I use this information, there's no going back. Your family will know you betrayed them. They stopped being my family when they hurt Emma. I'm done with them. That night, Jesse met with Glenn and Austin in Glenn's office, a sparse room above a bail bondsman in downtown Minneapolis. They spread the evidence across the desk, financial records, email transcripts, bank statements, everything. Austin whistled low. This is enough to put Mark away for a decade. Fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy. The FBI would love this. Not yet, Jesse said. First, I want it to happen. I want them to give Mark every penny they have. Then I want to make sure they can't claim ignorance or get any of it back. Glenn nodded slowly. You want them bankrupted and exposed. I want them destroyed. Financially, socially, legally. I want everyone to know what they are, gullible fools who abused a child to protect an affair, then got conned for their trouble. I want every country club, every social circle, every professional connection to know the Malones are finished. And Mark goes to prison. But only after he takes everything from them. Austin shifted uncomfortably. Jesse, this is walking a thin legal line. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm just not stopping a crime in progress. Is there a law that says I have to warn people they're about to be scammed? Technically, no. Morally? That's a different question. These people tortured my daughter. I've got no moral qualms about watching them destroy themselves. Glenn leaned back in his chair. You know what you're doing is going to hurt a lot of people. Stuart's not the only one invested in this. Larry's putting in money too, right? And Becky's trust fund. That was probably meant for Emma eventually. Jesse had thought about this. The trust fund bothered him, but not enough to change his plan. Becky made her choice when she let them abuse Emma. As for the money that might have gone to Emma someday, I'll make sure she's taken care of. I don't need Malone money for that. All right, Glenn said. Then here's what I propose. We let Mark's scam play out exactly as planned. But we make sure that when it crashes, the evidence is everywhere. Media, police, regulatory authorities. We make it a story big enough that there's no way to sweep it under the rug. The Malones become a cautionary tale. And in the meantime, you finalize your custody of Emma and your divorce from Becky. Get everything legal locked down before the explosion happens. That way, when Becky loses everything, she can't come after you for support or try to claim she needs Emma for emotional stability. Jesse looked at the calendar. 3 weeks until Mark's planned disappearance. The final custody hearing was in 2 weeks. The divorce could be finalized on an accelerated timeline if Becky agreed to terms, which she might if she thought she was getting rich soon. It could work. It would work. Let's do it, Jesse said. But I want one more thing. I want to meet Raymond Moss. Glenn and Austin exchanged glances. Why? Austin asked. Because I want to make sure he knows exactly what these people did. I want him to know he's not just scamming some wealthy family. He's helping bring down people who tortured a child. I want him motivated to do his job thoroughly. Glenn nodded slowly. I can arrange that. But Jesse, Meeting with Moss makes you part of this. You sure you want that exposure? I'm already part of this. I'm just making sure it happens the way it needs to. 2 days later, Jesse sat in a bar in St. Paul across from Raymond Moss, a lean man in his 40s with sharp eyes and the look of someone who'd spent his life reading people. Mark's partner in crime, the man who'd helped plan the con. You're the ex-husband, Moss said without preamble. Why am I talking to you? Because I know what you're planning, and I want to help. Moss's expression didn't change. Why would you help someone scam your ex-wife's family? Because they put my 7-year-old daughter outside in the freezing cold as punishment for telling the truth. Because they're planning to use their money to take her away from me. And because I want them to have nothing left to fight with when this is over. Moss considered this. Mark said the ex-husband was a construction worker. Simple guy, not a threat. Mark underestimates a lot of people. It's why he went to prison the first time I caught him stealing from our clients. It's why he thinks this scam will work. You sent Mark to prison? I threatened to. He disappeared before I could. Now he's back, running a con on my ex-wife and her family. And I'm going to make sure it succeeds beyond his wildest dreams. Moss smiled slowly. You're a vindictive bastard. I'm a father protecting his daughter. If that makes me a bastard, I'm good with it. They talked for an hour. Jesse showed Moss proof of what the Malones had done to Emma. The hospital records. The photographs. Emma's testimony. He explained the whole situation, the affair, the cover-up, the abuse. By the end, Moss's expression had hardened. I've scammed a lot of people, Moss said. Rich idiots who think they're smarter than everyone else. But I draw the line at hurting kids. What they did to your daughter. He shook his head. Yeah, I'll make sure this hurts. I don't want you changing the plan. Just execute it perfectly. Take every penny they have. Make it public. Make sure they can't hide or claim they're victims. Make them examples. What do you get out of this? Peace of mind. And custody of my daughter without them having the resources to fight me. Moss extended his hand. Deal. But if this goes sideways and we get caught, I never met you. Agreed. They shook, two men with very different motivations working toward the same goal. Jesse left the bar feeling lighter than he had in weeks. The trap was set. All he had to do now was wait for the Malones to walk into it. The final custody hearing happened 1 week later. The CPS investigation had concluded that Jesse provided a stable, safe home environment. Becky's supervised visitations had gone poorly. Emma was withdrawn and anxious around her mother, and the court monitor noted that Becky spent most of the visits on her phone or complaining about the supervision. Larry's assault charges against Jesse had been dropped after evidence showed that Larry had admitted to multiple people that he'd put Emma outside in the cold. The prosecutor decided that Jesse's reaction was justifiable given the circumstances. Judge Ortiz awarded Jesse full physical and legal custody of Emma. Becky was granted limited supervised visitation with the possibility of reassessment in 6 months, pending completion of parenting classes and a psychological evaluation. Becky's face went white when the judgment was read. She stood abruptly. This is wrong. He's turning her against me. I'm her mother. Mrs. Harris, Judge Ortiz said coldly. You allowed your daughter to be placed outside in dangerous weather conditions. You prioritized your affair over her safety. The evidence is overwhelming. Be grateful you're getting any visitation at all. Outside the courtroom, Becky confronted Jesse. This isn't over. When I marry Mark, I'll have the resources to appeal this. I'll fight you until Emma understands that you're the problem, not me. Jesse looked at his soon-to-be ex-wife and felt nothing but pity. Good luck with that, Becky. I'm sure Mark's millions will solve all your problems. He walked away, leaving her standing there, her lawyer trying to calm her down. 1 week later, the divorce was finalized. Becky had agreed to Jesse's terms without much fight. She got the house, he got full custody of Emma, and kept his business. She'd seemed almost eager to sign, probably because she thought she'd be upgrading to a better life soon. Jesse moved into a smaller house closer to Emma's new school in Chicago. He'd transferred his business operations, bringing his core team with him. It was a fresh start, and it felt right. Emma was thriving. She'd made friends. Her teachers said she was bright and engaged, and the nightmares about standing in the snow were becoming less frequent. Jesse had arranged for her to see a child therapist, who said Emma was resilient but would need continued support. Daddy, Emma asked one night as Jesse tucked her into bed, is Mommy going to try to take me back? Jesse chose his words carefully. Mommy would like to see you more, but the judge decided that you're safest living with me. That's not going to change, sweetheart. I promise. Good. Emma hugged her stuffed rabbit closer. I like it here. I like my new school. And I like that I don't have to see Uncle Larry or Grandpa Stewart anymore. You never have to see them again if you don't want to. I don't want to. Then you won't. After Emma fell asleep, Jesse went to his home office and checked his phone. A text from Jenny. It's happening tomorrow. Dad is signing the investment papers in the morning. Becky's transferring her trust fund tomorrow afternoon. Mark and Raymond are flying out tomorrow night. Tomorrow. Everything he'd planned, everything he'd set in motion, would reach its conclusion tomorrow. Jesse made a call to Glenn. It's time. Release everything to the media. Financial Crimes Unit. FBI. All of it. But wait until Mark and Raymond are on the plane. I want them caught at the airport. You sure about this, Jesse? I've never been more sure of anything. The next morning, Jesse woke up, made Emma breakfast, and drove her to school. He kissed her goodbye and told her he loved her. Then he drove to a coffee shop and waited. At 10 a.m., his phone started buzzing. News alerts. Breaking story. Prominent Minnesota family caught in multi-million-dollar cryptocurrency scam. Local lawyer faces criminal investigation for investment fraud connection. Social elite family loses fortune to con man. By noon, it was everywhere. The story had everything. Wealth, scandal, stupidity, crime. The media loved it. The Malone name was trending on social media, and not in a good way. Jesse's phone rang. Jenny. It's chaos, she said, her voice shaky but triumphant. Dad's having a breakdown. Becky won't stop screaming. Larry's lawyer already called. He's being investigated for violating his law firm's ethics policies because of his gambling debts. Mark and Raymond got arrested at the airport trying to board a flight to Grand Cayman. It's over, Jesse. They're finished. How much did they lose? Everything. Dad's house is going into foreclosure. Becky's trust fund is gone. Larry's going to be disbarred. The FBI seized all of Mark's accounts. Turns out Raymond was working with them, cutting a deal. Mark's going to prison for a long time. Jesse felt a cold satisfaction settle over him. Good. There's more. Some of Dad's neighbors and friends, the ones who invested based on his recommendation, they're talking about suing him. Civil suits for negligence or fraud or something. Dad's going to be in legal battles for years. What about you? I'm fine. I documented everything I gave you. Made sure there's a trail showing I tried to warn Dad, and he ignored me. My lawyer says I'm clear. You did good, Jenny. I did the right thing. There's a difference. She paused. How's Emma? She's happy. She's safe. She's never going to have to worry about them again. That's all that matters then. After hanging up, Jesse sat in the coffee shop, watching the news coverage on his tablet. They showed photographs of Stuart Malone being escorted from his house by federal agents. They showed footage of Mark Warren in handcuffs. They showed interviews with financial experts explaining how the scam worked and how the victims should have seen it coming. The Malones were a punchline now. A cautionary tale. Everything they'd valued, their name, their status, their money, was gone. Jesse thought about revenge and justice and whether there was really a difference when the outcome was the same. He thought about Emma, safe in her classroom, learning and laughing and being a child without fear. He thought about the look on Larry's face when he'd found Emma outside in the cold, the smirk on Mark's face when he'd admitted to the affair, Becky's casual dismissal of her daughter's suffering. They'd hurt his child. They'd thought they could get away with it because they had money and lawyers and the Malone name. They were wrong. Jesse had built the perfect trap, and they'd walked into it willingly, greedily, stupidly. And now they had nothing left but legal troubles and ruined reputations. His phone rang again. Dominic. I saw the news. That was you, wasn't it? I don't know what you're talking about. Jesse. They're saying the FBI got an anonymous tip with detailed evidence. Financial records, emails, everything. That was you. Can't prove it. Dominic laughed. You're a scary bastard when someone hurts your kid. I'm a father. I do what needs to be done. Yeah, you do. Dominic's voice softened. Emma's asking when you'll be home. She made you a drawing at school today. I'll be there in an hour. Tell her we'll get ice cream to celebrate. Celebrate what? A new beginning. Jesse paid for his coffee and walked out into the cold Minnesota afternoon. The sun was shining, and the air was clean and sharp. He got in his truck and started the drive back to Chicago, back to Emma, back to his new life. Behind him, the Malone family empire was crumbling to dust. Their money was gone, their reputation destroyed, their legal troubles just beginning. Mark Warren was facing federal prison time. Larry Malone was being disbarred. Stuart Malone was losing his house and facing civil suits from angry investors. Becky Harris was penniless and alone, her dreams of a wealthy lifestyle shattered. And Emma was safe. Jessie Harris, the construction worker with calloused hands and a state school education, had taken on a wealthy family with lawyers and connections and destroyed them so completely that they would never recover. He'd done it methodically, carefully, perfectly, just like building a structure meant to last. This one would last forever. The Malones would be a cautionary tale for years to come, a story about greed and stupidity and the consequences of hurting the wrong person's child. Jesse smiled as he drove, thinking about Emma's drawing waiting for him at home, about the ice cream they'd share, about the life they'd build together. He'd built many things in his career: houses, offices, schools. But this, Emma's safety, her happiness, her future free from the people who hurt her, this was the best thing he'd ever built. And it would stand forever. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.